Are you heading off to college or university and worried about losing your faith? What can you do to grow in your faith while at school? Join us today on the Prepared to Answer podcast as we tackle both of these questions.
You're listening to the Prepared to Answer podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And just a reminder that all the resources mentioned in this episode are linked in the episode description. You can find other related resources on our website at preparedtoanswer.org.
Welcome to the Prepared to Answer podcast. My name is Shawn Walker, and I'm not joined by Scott Steen this morning. Scott is on a hiatus for a bit. We're going to have a number of guests onto the PTA podcast, a number that you have seen before or heard before, so we're excited to have them back. And then also some new guests. Scott on this hiatus will be doing some work on some new initiatives, some new resources for our audience, for that next generation. Part of that is going out to churches. Scott is out on campuses throughout our region, which is exciting. And actually to that end, our guest this morning, and I'm super excited to have these two guests with me today, my daughters, Megan and Natalie Walker. Welcome to the Prepared to Answer podcast. So good to have you on today.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to chat about stuff.
We're excited.
Yeah. What we're going to take a look at is just a snapshot of what's happening on Canadian secular university campuses. And we're hoping that this will allow those Christians that are thinking about going on to a secular campus and maybe being a little hesitant, maybe unsure. They've heard that going on to a secular campus would torpedo their faith. Maybe they've heard that is where faith goes to die, is on the university campus. But we're hoping this episode we can kind of dive into the ladies' experience and maybe provide you with some resources. But we're also interested in what are the issues? What is it on campus that kids are talking about? So I'd love to have you introduce yourselves. We'll start in birth order. So that would be Megan. So Megan, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yes. I'm Megan. I go to university at Western University. It's in London, Ontario in Canada. And I'm in a medical science program. I'm in fourth year.
Just finishing that up?
Exactly. Excellent. Well, maybe not. But yes.
Okay. Thanks. Nat?
Yeah, so I go to the University of Toronto in Toronto, Canada. And I'm in a humanities program studying history and English in my second year.
Wonderful. So I'm going to start off with the first question. So think back to high school. Did you have any hesitation when you thought of going to a secular campus as it pertains to your faith? Were you worried about what may happen or what the campus would be like?
I would say maybe a little bit, but on the whole, not entirely. Both Megan and I went to public school for high school. So we already kind of got, I would say, a decent look of what learning in a secular environment kind of looks like. Like, obviously, to a certain degree. And a little farming high school is a little bit different than the downtown Toronto secular university. But I would say that prepped me a little bit more than if I had attended like a Christian school my whole life. I was feeling a little bit more prepared, but still a little bit hesitant, especially with my program.
Okay. Meg?
Yeah, I would kind of say the same as Natalie, just coming from a public school. That's all we'd ever known. So it was kind of hard to imagine what a whole Christian campus was. And like growing up in the public school, you take the university courses to go to university, and then you plan your career from that. So it kind of didn't fit to going to a Christian university. And also I just didn't know that there's Christian seminaries in Canada and so on all across Canada and the States. But to my understanding, that's for Bible college. And that's not what I was wanting to pursue at the time. So I didn't even know that there was Christian universities like Redeemer. So it kind of was no hesitation because this is just the path that went on. And also that has to do with where I was at in my faith. And it was just not a concern at the time of going.
Good. So some of the things that we had worried about is the classroom. Stories, you get into these classrooms and the profs kind of tear away at your faith and kind of make fun or demean faith in the classroom. And so maybe you could talk to what's been the environment for each of you in the classroom. Is in fact that the case? Maybe we'll start with Meg.
Yeah, it's interesting because, growing up, even in public school, I remember like in grade 6, having conversations with other kids about science and evolution and how evolution and Christianity can't coexist and they're at odds. So there was a little bit of fear that that might be the case. But on the whole, going to science courses, I would say it's pretty straightforward. Here's the science. I don't take religion or philosophy courses, so there's not really the space to talk about it. And I think professors, or at least the ones I have, know that you can't put your opinion into science teaching. It's just hard fact. And some more than others would maybe throw in little comments here and there, but on the whole, it was just teaching science. And I actually had a couple professors that were outright in their faith, that they were Christians, and kind of straight up said it. And the difference between their teaching and the regular non-Christian professors it was different. They cared more about the science, their students, what they were teaching, overall more pleasant to deal with. But the actual teaching itself didn't change necessarily between a Christian prof and a non-Christian prof.
So that's fascinating. So some of your profs actually profess their faith, and this is on a secular campus.
Yes. Kind of straight up at the beginning of the class when they were introducing themselves, said something to the like, and it was very encouraging to sit there and think, whoa, there are Christians here and they're teaching. Science and Christianity aren't at odds.
Wow. Okay. No, that's really cool. What a testimony to be on that campus. Oh, that's really cool. Nat, how about you? What's your experience been like in humanities? A different discipline for sure.
Yes, I would say it's a bit different to Megan's experience. Still good, and definitely can grow in your faith in the humanities, just in a little bit more of a challenging kind of way. As Megan said, like her profs, like it's harder to throw opinions into science, whereas in the humanities, you're almost forced to do that. So with all of my classes, I have lectures, but then I also have tutorials. And tutorials are like a specifically designated time where you do a reading prior to coming and then sit down with about 20 other people and just talk about the material, discuss what your opinions are, kind of this environment of debate and discussion and what do you think? And so with history, obviously a lot of our conversations then steer towards Christianity, sometimes in good ways, sometimes mostly in bad ways. Okay. It's been a challenge in that you have to face kind of these like differing opinions and like, okay, I'm learning a lot about colonialism right now. So there's a lot of debate on, missionaries and their role. And then how do I reconcile that with my faith and, defending that in this kind of environment in a respectful way, but also in a way that stands up for what I believe in.
And how do you do that?
Well, I like to pray before some of my tutorials that I know are going to steer towards those directions.
Yeah.
But also just kind of playing advocate for Christianity, because you can, like, one of the things that we're supposed to do is to put things in its historical context. And so a lot of these controversial things that, Christianity has done can be taken at a different angle. And tutorials are an environment where you get to discuss, like you get to look at these different angles. So it's not so much people are violently arguing at you. It is a discussion, and it is an opportunity for me to help people see these things from a different angle, from a different viewpoint. So it's actually been a great experience in that way, but again, a bit of a challenge.
For sure. No, that's amazing. Okay, why don't we move outside of the classroom and talk about what it's like to be a Christian on campus. So social activities, clubs. I mean, some universities have reputations for partying, some don't. Nat, maybe you start with you.
U of T is a bit interesting in that it's not as much as a party and social school as maybe some of the other ones. Mm-hmm. So a lot of extracurriculars and clubs and stuff like that are mainly centered around academics, and you kind of meet people through your academics. And so that was a bit of a challenge because I would say the majority of people in my classes, from what I've seen so far, are not Christian and usually really shy away from that. So it's a bit hard to, again, at least in my experience, make, friends with the same values and religion as me in my classes. But thankfully, and I'm going to put a plug in here for Power to Change. Power to Change is a campus ministry on a bunch of different campuses. And I think in the States, it's called Crew, maybe.
Okay.
And so it's just a club on campus that meets every week, and we eat together, part of a small group, and just a really great way to be in fellowship on campus. It's definitely helped me see that there are Christians on campus because, again, in my classes, I'm not seeing any of that. And so if I hadn't, learned about Power to Change and ended up going, my faith would have been so much more divided from my schooling than it is now. Yeah, it's been a really great opportunity to, have my faith flow throughout my life in such a big part as school is.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks. Meg?
Yes, the experience outside of the classroom has definitely changed a lot over the 4 years. I would say going into first year, I wasn't that interested in keeping my faith strong and really pursuing at church being the same person as I was in school. That didn't really concern me. And so going into first year, it said you find your best friends at university. So I was pretty concerned with finding friends and doing social things. And like Hadley said, the universities are different. And so Western is known as a party school, and that's very real and very present in everyday life, with a lot of people going out through the week on certain bar nights, and that's kind of the social calendar. So I looked for friends in the circles I was already in, and so I was on a sports team that I kind of looked for friends in there, and that's what they would do. They'd go out to bars and parties, and that's kind of the crowd I got linked into, but it was never fulfilling or any sort of good friendship, and I was left a little lonely even though I thought I had friends. But then in the second half of first year, I went to a retreat for Power to Change, also at Western. I went to that, and that was the first glimpse I had of, whoa, there's Christians on secular campuses, and these are some of the most zealous Christians you will ever find because they're in the heart of it. And most of them were new believers. And so finding community, they were just on fire for Jesus and people. And it was a completely different thing than the world was telling me and the friends that I had at the time. So P2C was a very welcoming community. They welcomed me immediately, tried to get me connected with other first years, and it's definitely changed my university life. I joined a small group in second year, and that was just a group of girls that we had community and walked through life together, and that definitely changed my perspective on faith in campus, especially seeing how the fourth years were living it out and how they had grown in their faith. It was very encouraging.
Great. So you kind of answered my next question, which would be, do you feel like your faith has grown since starting school? We'll start with Nat.
I would definitely say that. I think, I don't know, because it's such a important time in your life and you're faced with so much change, you're going to go one of two ways. I think because there's so much change, you're kind of just forced to either grow or decline in your faith. At least for me, with moving away from home and you're just forced into this entirely new environment. you have to decide how you're going to face the challenges that come with it. And so Power to Change, again, has just been amazing at helping with that. Like Megan said, like getting into a small group. And then at ours, we also do personal discipleship. So in my first year, I had one of the leaders who had like just graduated and was on staff with Power to Change. She was like, hey, would you be open to me personally discipling you? And I was like, yes, I would love that. And so we would just meet once a week and talk about, you know, what's challenging, what's going well, and praying and working through some of the things. And it's just been such a blessing and has helped immensely.
Good. Okay, thanks. Meg?
I would also say that my faith has grown in a number of ways. Like Natalie said, it's a really critical time, and that's why people hear about people leaving the faith and just going completely the opposite way, because it kind of does make you choose. You get presented right close and up front with what the world is offering. A lot of the new ideas of our age and way that culture and just the country is moving is promoted widely throughout the campus. Yeah, so it's made me grow in that way, being confronted with conversations with new people, even within the club, Christian club, challenging me on my theology, on what I believe, and would I be able to stand up if someone who's not a Christian comes and asks me. So it's a super good environment to be in that spurs you on towards your faith, or spurs you on towards Jesus. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Thanks. And again, these are just snapshots of your experiences. And of course, this isn't everyone's experience on campus. So we want to make sure that people know that. But if you were to speak to someone that may be apprehensive, maybe a Christian thinking of going to a secular campus or needs to, because like Megan said, that's the path that they feel God's leading them on in terms of training or education. What advice would you guys have for those maybe in September going or starting on a secular campus?
I would say find the Christian communities early. They exist on every campus, whether it's really widely promoted or not. There's usually clubs at each campus, or at least churches that have a lot of students go to it near the universities. And churches surrounding the university are super concerned with getting students plugged in, and they usually have very good young adult ministry. So even if you're like, oh, I'm going to a secular campus, it doesn't have Power to Change. Megan, where's this Christian community? The churches are Christian communities. So There's that. It would have helped me a lot in first year if I had just gone to Power to Change the first week and found my people there and bam, I'm set. But it took me a little bit. So yes, go. Don't be scared. It's super encouraging. It's like getting ready for battle with your people, and then you go into the secular.
I like that. That's a good analogy.
Thanks.
The battle belongs to the Lord, right?
Amen.
Nat, how about you?
Megan took the good
ones.
Points. No. I would say, I'd back up what she just said, obviously. But yeah, I would say do a lot of prayer and evaluation before you go. Make sure your heart is in the right place, because you go from, maybe growing up in a Christian home, or at least we did, kind of this like safe bubble home church. You're in a good spot and it's easy. And so thinking about what your faith is actually grounded on, and, what's supporting it. Is it this bubble that you've grown up in, or is it, that you are taking the steps that you need to support your own faith? Is really, I think, really important, and will really set you up to grow in your faith and have it strong. Because it's good to get into those communities, but it's also really good to make sure that on your own, you're strong with Christ, especially if maybe your campus doesn't have those communities. Like, we were really blessed with Power to Change, but I know there's campuses out there that don't have that, and maybe don't have maybe super welcoming churches around them. Hopefully they do, but yeah.
Yeah. And that's a great segue to my next question. So, what are some of the questions maybe that you're struggling with, maybe that you've been talking to friends on campus that they're struggling with? Maybe that's something we could grab a guest on and help you answer. What are a couple questions you guys have had or have been talking about?
Well, yesterday we have an outreach booth at school, so P2C puts out a table, and sometimes we have people come up and ask questions. So yesterday it was set up, and one of the people on our team told us the questions. So this was one.
Okay.
A girl asked, "Why does the Bible degrade women?" And then another guy asked, "Why do animals suffer because of the fall if they didn't sin?" And very interesting questions. And I think it kind of shows our generation isn't really concerned with, is God real? More like, what is this God like? And why does the Bible say this? In God's perfect world, why did he make it like this? Why does evil exist if God is good? Critiquing who he is and how the world runs, kind of, because I think everybody sees the messed up world. Everything's like falling apart a little bit, as it's always been. But
yes,
they see that very clearly. And of course, our generation is very concerned with social justice, and so they know what the problems are. So they're asking, why did God allow these problems?
Yeah, no, great questions. Okay, well, we've got those written down. Nat, how about you? Any other questions? What's been your experience?
Well, there are different, obviously, for like how actual Christians already are struggling on campus, and then kind of what the rest of the secular campus is dealing with. So similar to Megan, we have outreaches at ours. And so last week we did one called whiteboarding, where we have this giant whiteboard that asks the question, and then we ask random people to answer the question.
What was the question?
Where does our value as humans come from?
Whoa.
Yeah. So first of all, that's a challenge for me to try and answer that. And so a bunch of the answers varying were like, oh, like I determine my own value. And then me and the other person that I was on outreach with, we were like, okay, well then how do you determine your own value? How do you differ that from someone else? Do you determine you're more valuable than someone else? And like really just kind of getting down to the bottom of it. And you can kind of see people struggling, not only with this outreach, but a lot of them I've seen just kind of the struggle with their identity a bit. So that's one of the main ones. And then for Christians, at least at like our meetings and stuff like that, we struggle a lot with balancing school and faith and finding your worth in your success and your grades. I think is a very popular struggle, at least at U of T, because it's such a competitive environment that it's just kind of weighing heavily on a lot of students' minds.
Yeah. So that's some great questions that we can look into, maybe get some guests on to talk to. So appreciate that. I'm going to just throw out some of the questions that we will be asking and hopefully answering. So one of the questions we're going to ask is, who would Jesus party with? This question is, how do we live in a secular world? How do we live in the world but not be of the world? How would Jesus do that? We're going to ask, what podcast would Jesus listen to? So we're going to have a guest help us with that. We're also going to be talking about assurance of salvation. How can I know for sure that I'm saved? We're going to talk to that. Also, we're going to dive into some archaeology and how that supports the veracity of the Bible. So those are some of the things. We might be doing some dating, marriage topics as well. So that's probably a good place to wrap up. It's been great having you girls on. What we'll do is within the podcast description, we're going to add some links to Power to Change because we talked about that. That's a great resource. I know InterVarsity also has clubs on campus. I think there's a number of other Christian clubs, but there's two at least that our listeners can check out and see what's there, especially if they're thinking about a particular campus to go to. And as always, we've actually talked about questions today, but if you have questions as a listener, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at info@preparedtoanswer.org, or you can leave a message on any of our platforms that we're on, both on our podcast and on our videos. We'd love to hear from you. We love answering questions, so bring them on in. And until next time, God bless.
Thanks for listening to the Prepared to Answer podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments you'd like to share with us, feel free to email us at info@preparedtoanswer.org, contact us through Facebook or Instagram @preparedtoanswer, or use the contact form on our website, preparedtoanswer.org.